This is a revised presentation on writing the proficiency descriptors in the Phase 2 courses. Mapping the SLOs. Remember that the SLO-PLO relationship is a one-to-one relationship. In other words, every SLO will map to only one PLO. Each SLO can only be measured in one module. So, for instance, SLO 4 would not be measured in both Module 4 and Module 8. You would need to have a separate SLO for Module 8. So, and also please be sure that your SLOs are in numerical order. Don't measure SLO 2 in Module 6. You can have multiple SLOs in each module, but please make sure that the SLOs follow in numerical order. The only institutional core competency that has two program learning outcomes is ethics and diversity. However, if you're measuring ethics, it is going to be a separate SLO than if you're measuring global diversity. You can measure them in the same assignment, but each one will have its own student learning outcome mapped to the program learning outcome, which is either ethics or global diversity. And it's not required that you measure both in the same assignment. Some classes will measure only ethics, some will measure only global diversity, some will measure neither, and some will measure both. You are going to be provided with new rubrics that have been developed from the value rubrics. Customize the rubric that has been provided to you. These are normed on a national scale, and you must customize them for the assignment and the SLO and the PLO that's being measured. We're going to provide some examples here. And it's actually from two different courses, but three different SLOs. So the first step is to obtain the rubric for your program, business, general studies, criminal justice, or allied health. Second, go to the tab for the course level, associates or bachelor's. Third, find the SLO map that you have mapped the course student learning outcomes to the program learning outcomes. Fourth, find the PLO, the program learning outcome, on the rubric. Fifth, copy the proficiency descriptor from the PLO and insert it into your rubric for that specific class. And then sixth is to customize that proficiency descriptor to the student learning outcome and to that specific assignment. So here's an example from Psychology 1. You see that we have a student learning outcome in Module 3. SLO will be renumbered to be SLO number 3. It is mapped to written communication. Module 4, which the number will be changed to number 4. It happens that there was one SLO per module here. Will be mapped to critical thinking. So here's where we pulled the program learning outcome from the rubric that you have been provided. But as you can see here, each one of these tasks is far too generic for this specific course. So while we do talk about written communication in the content of the rubric, we want to make sure that this is provided to the student specific to the course and specific to the assignment. So we're going to take a look at it next as it has been customized. So here is the SLO, what we've asked the student to do. We have asked them to distinguish the various states of awareness and the impact on behavior, both conscious and unconscious. So the homework actually asks the students to write about their dreams, and then it asks the students to research dream interpretation on the internet. So here we have actually customized that description of what the student has been asked to do. Various states of awareness are described clearly and comprehensively. And to speak to the information literacy portion, here we now discuss how they are using skillful use of credible relevant sources, demonstrating that detailed attention to a wide range of conventions. And I apologize, this one is not critical thinking, it is writing, and that tells me down here in the conventions specific discipline writing task. So you can see how easy it is to fall off track if you're not using a rubric that has been normed already to the value rubrics for writing. So here we have used those value rubrics for writing, and you have been provided with that rubric, and then you are customizing it to the exact task that the student is going to do, and then how well they do that. So when we get down here, and we note that these titles may be changing, various states of awareness are described clearly, but not as well as this student who also described them comprehensively. Here, the student who meets expectations marginally describes some states of awareness, but they also leave some terms undefined or unexplored. And then finally, our student that does not meet expectations may just leave complete gaps in what they're doing. They have very simplistic ideas that they're discussing. Some states of awareness may be identified, they don't clarify it, and they don't describe it. So let's look at the next example. We want to talk about those levels of achievement in the sense of describing students' ability to succeed in accomplishing this task. So one of the first things for the students is that it coaches the students to success. When they look at that proficiency descriptor, they should know what it takes to step up a notch from where they are. So if they're in our third quartile and they are meeting expectations marginally, then we really want them to know what it's going to take to meet those expectations or to exceed those expectations. We look at these in quartiles of achievement. So the first proficiency descriptor to write is the one that describes excellence, and it is our top quartile students. Every other descriptor will be a step down from excellence. And rather than thinking about this on a bell curve, we actually are hoping that most of our students, approximately 80%, would meet or exceed expectations, because otherwise we're not accomplishing our goals of actually teaching the students what we want them to learn in the sense of these core competencies and program learning outcomes. So the next example is the program learning outcome 4, and it goes for module 4. This one is mapped critical thinking, and again we can see that this is too generic. The issue problem is described clearly. Well, it may be described clearly, but what does the student know that they're supposed to do in this particular assignment? So here we look at the actual homework that was developed for this, and we are asking the student to show that they understand the basic principles of learning and memory. So this assignment has asked the student to describe those, and the basic principles here, now customized, show that in critical thinking that the student has explained them clearly, they've critically thought about it, they've used sufficient sources to evaluate and develop a thorough analysis, they analyze their own assumptions and they question others' viewpoints, they are insightful, they account for the complexities of the issue, and they fully explore conclusions, consequences, and implications, and they understand the priority value of those conclusions. So here on the next one down, we're looking where they may have stated those basic principles of learning and memory, but they may not have fully explored them. Here they leave some of the terms undefined, undetermined, and here they've stated them, but they do not clarify nor describe them. And at the very lowest level, they really are just rote describing what they found in the book. They didn't really think about it. They take the viewpoints of experts as fact. They don't question them. Their stated position is simplistic and obvious. It doesn't really reflect an understanding of the readings. So you can see that these steps of improvement in critical thinking are customized and described in the program learning outcomes and in the proficiency descriptors. We have the super SLOs that are color-coded to match the ICCs and PLOs. So use the super SLOs. We're not going to use the descriptors for content, how well the student learns the content in the class, which will be about 80% of the grade. We have these super SLOs that are now curriculum-wide and give us a place to comment on whether the student is writing well in the sense of are there grammar, syntax, structure, organization and scope, APA formatting, how well are those done? You no longer have to add those into your content descriptors. The content descriptors should describe exactly what the student has to do in that class. If you want to grade on APA citation, that's going to be done here with the super SSLOs. And they are color-coded, so writing is blue, oral is green, quantitative is gold, and critical thinking is peach/orange. And those color codings go all the way through to the ICC PLO maps. So we have a second example from the Microsoft Office class. Here we are looking at the PLO for information literacy, and I believe we used this assignment right here, Module 4, SLO 4. Again, too generic here in defining the scope of the research question or thesis, so we have to customize this. So in this homework, we asked the student to create an Excel table and conduct research on the internet about formatting research papers. We've developed 2 SLOs. Both of them address information literacy, but we have 2 different tasks that the student is doing. One is doing the research, and one is using Excel. So they might use the Excel spreadsheets and do that very well, but they might not use the internet to get information very well. So we need an SLO that addresses each task. We cannot combine those tasks into one SLO. So here you can see the SLO 4 is demonstrate information literacy skills to research and apply Microsoft Word formatting to documents. And here we've said this is where they understand using those tools, that information literacy. You can see the SLO speaks directly to using those information literacy skills, and we talk about them being able to conduct this research using the internet. But when we want to talk about them using the Microsoft Excel, we've developed a new SLO 5, and that one is here. So here we actually speak to they accurately formatted that Excel document and included the required text. So that would be all of the required text. Here, they included most of the required text. We really describe what technological skill we expect them to have here. They use that spreadsheet to manage and process data. They can use the internet to research, organize, analyze, synthesize, and evaluate information to solve a problem. So we're asking them to solve those problems using information literacy, their technological skills. Mishaps to avoid. Page length does not determine the criteria for proficiency. The number of sources does not determine the criteria for proficiency. Not for content proficiency. Those things would be addressed in the super SLOs. And something that you could address in content is that they have sufficient sources to document their thought process, but not that they have 2 sources or 3 sources or 4 sources. The number of sources, you could have 50 sources, but if you use them poorly, then you have not met the criteria for doing well in that assignment. And again, APA citation does not determine the criteria for content proficiency. The Super SLOs are curriculum-wide, and we're counting those at approximately 20% of the class, and the content knowledge as 80% of the class. And again, if you had an English class, of course, your content is English, and you would be able to use those more of those descriptors there. But generally speaking, for most of our classes, they're not English classes, and the English falls under the Super SLOs. I want to thank you very much for listening to me. You will be provided with the new rubrics. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks.